The diplomatic ship New Seoul moved slowly through space toward Harmony Point Station. Ambassador Kim Dae-ho stood at the main window, watching the massive structure grow larger as they approached. The station looked like a giant wheel spinning, in the darkness its lights twinkling like stars. This was where the 7 species of the galaxy met once each year to discuss peace and trade. Commander Park So-jin walked up beside him. Her blue military uniform was clean and pressed with gold buttons that caught the light. She carried herself like a soldier, but her job today was to protect the ambassador, not fight wars. "Sir, we will dock in 20 minutes, she said. The other species arrived yesterday. The Velati brought 3 ships this time. Kim Dae-ho nodded. The Velati always made a show of their wealth and power. Their ships were beautiful works of art, covered in silver and gold. The humans had only one ship, and it was built for function, not beauty. This said everything about how the galaxy saw them. Any word from Earth about the Rim colonies? Kim asked. Park So-jin shook her head. Nothing new. 7 colonies have gone silent in the past 3 months. The last messages all said the same thing. Shadows in space. Ships that eat light. Then nothing. The ambassador frowned. He had read all the reports. Entire worlds with millions of people just stopped talking to the rest of the galaxy. No explosions. No distress calls after the first few words. Just silence. The New Seoul docked with Harmony Point with a soft thud. Kim Dae-ho gathered his papers and walked toward the airlock. Park So-jin followed with 2 other human officers. The station's artificial gravity felt different from their ship. Lighter somehow. The main meeting hall was enormous. 7 curved tables sat in a circle, each one designed for a different species. The humans sat at the smallest table. It was a reminder that they were the newest members of the Galactic Accord, accepted only 60 years ago. The Velati sat across from them. They looked almost human but taller and thinner, with pale skin that seemed to glow. Their leader, Count Vex, wore robes made of fabric that changed color as he moved. He nodded politely to Kim Dae-ho, but his eyes held no warmth. To the left were the Corvani, short and stocky with 4 arms each. They were the galaxy's traders, always talking about profits and shipping routes. Their representative, Trademaster Gull, was counting something on a small device that clicked with each touch. The Nexari table held only one figure. Dr. Zen was tall and thin with large black eyes that never seemed to blink. The Nexari were scientists and philosophers. They spoke little but observed everything. The Bruthen section was loud with the sound of heavy breathing and low growls. These were warriors, covered in natural armor that looked like stone. General Krex stood over, 7 feet tall, and his hands could crush a human skull without effort. But the Bruthen were bound by honor codes that made them reliable allies. The Zephyri were the strangest of all. They looked like humans, but moved in perfect sync, as if controlled by one mind. Because they were. The Zephyri shared thoughts across their entire species. 3 of them sat at their table, but they might as well have been one person. The last table belonged to the Vorthak. Minister Thys sat alone, as always. The Vorthak were covered in dark robes that hid their faces. In 60 years of meetings, no human had ever seen what they really looked like. They spoke in whispers and always seemed to know more than they said. Count Vex called the meeting to order. His voice carried easily across the hall. "Welcome, friends, to another gathering of the Galactic Accord. We have much to discuss today." The first hours were boring. Trade disputes between the Corvani and Bruthen. Border disagreements that the Nexari wanted to study. Environmental concerns from worlds that the Zephyri had settled. Kim Dae-ho listened, patiently waiting for his chance to speak. Finally, Count Vex turned to him. "Ambassador Kim, does Earth have anything to bring before the Council?" Kim stood up. He activated a hologram projector that showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations where colonies had disappeared. "Honored friends," Kim began, "we face a threat that affects us all. 7 worlds have gone silent in the Outer Rim. The pattern suggests an organized attack moving toward the core systems." Trademaster Gull waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "Pirates, raiders, The Rim has always been dangerous. These are not pirates, Kim said firmly. Pirates steal cargo and leave. These attackers leave nothing. No debris, no bodies, no trace that the world's ever existed. Dr. Zen leaned forward with interest. Fascinating. What do your sensors show? Energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. Ships that seem to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Whatever they are, they possess technology far beyond ours. General Krex pounded his fist on the table. The sound echoed through the hall. Then we fight. Send the combined fleets to destroy these shadows. With respect, Minister Thiss whispered, we should not act in haste. Perhaps these are natural phenomena, solar flares, gravitational anomalies. The universe is full of mysteries. Kim shook his head. The final transmissions from Keller Prime were clear. The colonists saw ships, geometric shapes that hurt to look at. They spoke of shadows that moved against the light of their sun. Count Vex studied the map with elegant fingers pressed together. Even if you are correct, Ambassador, what would you have us do? The Galactic Accord prevents any one species from taking military action without unanimous consent. I propose we send a joint exploration force to investigate. Small, fast ships with representatives from each species. If there is a threat, we need to understand it before it reaches the inner worlds. The voting was swift and predictable. The Velati voted no, claiming it was too expensive. The Corvani voted no, saying it would disrupt trade routes. The Nexari voted no, preferring to study the data they already had. The Bruthan wanted to vote yes, but only if they could lead a military assault. The Zephyri voted no after communing with their collective mind. The Vorthak voted no, insisting there was no real threat. Kim Dae-ho stood alone, 6-1 against, the same result as always when humans proposed action instead of talk. The motion fails, Count Vex announced. We will continue to monitor the situation through normal channels. As the meeting moved on to other business, Kim felt a familiar frustration. For 60 years, humanity had played by the rules. They had signed every treaty, followed every protocol, respected every boundary, and what had it gotten them? A small table in a big room and no voice when it mattered. After the session ended, Commander Lee Hyun-woo approached Park So-jin near the docking bay. He was head of human intelligence, a thin man with quick eyes that missed nothing. Commander, he said quietly, we need to talk, privately. They found an empty storage room away from the main corridors. Lee activated a small device that would block any listening equipment. The Rim situation is worse than the ambassador knows, Lee said. Our deep space sensors picked up massive energy readings moving through dark space. Whatever destroyed those colonies is not random. It is organized, systematic, and heading for the core worlds. Park So-jin felt ice in her stomach. How long do we have? 6 months, maybe less if they accelerate. Lee handed her a data pad with classified information. There is something else. The energy signatures we detected? They match references in some very old Vorthak texts that our cryptographers finally decoded. What do they say? Lee looked around to make sure they were truly alone. They call them the Devourers, ancient beings that consume entire civilizations. The texts say they return every few thousand years to harvest the galaxy. Park stared at the datapad, numbers and graphs that painted a picture of destruction moving toward everything she loved. Earth, with its blue oceans and white clouds, the colonies where humans had built new homes among the stars, all of it in the path of something that the galaxy refused to acknowledge. What do we do, she asked. We follow orders. We protect the ambassador. We hope the politicians find wisdom before it is too late. Lee paused at the door. But Commander, you should know that some people in Earth's government are asking different questions. Questions about what happens when diplomacy fails. As Lee disappeared down the corridor, Park So-jin stood alone with the terrible knowledge. The Galactic Accord that had brought 60 years of peace was also a chain that bound them to a slow death. The treaties that protected them from war might destroy them all. She walked back toward the new Sol, thinking about the weapons locked away in Earth's military vaults. Weapons that violated a dozen interstellar laws. Weapons they had promised never to use. She wondered how long those promises would last when the shadows came calling. 3 months had passed since the meeting at Harmony Point. Admiral Choi Sung-min stood on the bridge of his flagship, the battlecruiser Busan's Thunder, watching the stars streak past through hyperspace. His fleet of 12 ships was racing toward Nexus Prime, the largest Corvani trading hub in the galaxy. The distress call had come 6 hours ago. Then nothing. Just like all the other worlds that had gone silent. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Kang Bora from the communication station. "We are dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds. Choi gripped the railing around his command chair. He had served in the human fleet for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like what the reports described. Entire planets vanishing without a trace. No wreckage. No survivors. No answers. The stars stopped moving as the fleet returned to normal space. Where Nexus Prime should have been, there was only empty darkness. "Sensors report," Choi ordered. Captain Nam Suho bent over his instruments. His face went pale. "Sir, there is no planet. The gravitational readings show something was here, but now there is just empty space. That is impossible. Planets do not just disappear. The star is still here, but it looks wrong, dimmer than it should be. And there are strange readings from where the planet should be orbiting." Choi moved to look at the sensor display himself. The numbers made no sense. There was a gravity field where Nexus Prime should be, but no mass to create it. Just a faint distortion in space-time, like an echo of something that used to exist. "Launch probes. I want detailed scans of the entire system." The small robot ships spread out, their instruments recording everything. What they found chilled everyone on the bridge. Nexus Prime had not been destroyed. It had been consumed, eaten, converted into pure energy, and absorbed by something that left only the faintest trace behind. "Admiral," Lieutenant Kang's voice was shaky. "I am picking up a message beacon. It is Corvani design, but it is very weak. Put it on the main screen." The hologram flickered to life, showing Trademaster Gull, the same Corvani who had dismissed human warnings 3 months ago. But this was not the confident merchant from Harmony Point. This Gull was terrified, his forearms shaking as he spoke. "Emergency transmission to all allied worlds," the recording began. "Nexus Prime is under attack by unknown forces. Their ships are like nothing in our databases, geometric shapes that hurt to look at. They absorb our weapons fire and seem to eat light itself." The image shook as explosions rocked the room where Gull was recording. "They are not interested in conquest or negotiation. They consume everything. The atmosphere, the oceans, even the rock and metal of the planet itself. We have maybe an hour before." The transmission cut to static. Then nothing. Captain Han Ji-woo commanded the heavy cruiser Incheon's Pride, the fastest ship in Choi's fleet. She had been ordered to scout the outer edge of the system while the main force investigated where Nexus Prime used to be. "Captain," called her sensor officer, Ensign Yu Jimin. "I am detecting movement in the asteroid belt. Something big." Han moved to the tactical station. On the screen she could see shapes moving between the floating rocks. Ships, but not like any ships she had ever seen. They were perfectly black, absorbing all light that touched them. Their design was geometric, all sharp angles and impossible curves that seemed to twist back on themselves. "How many?" Han asked. "Difficult to say. They blend into the darkness, at least 20, maybe more." "Distance?" 2 million kilometers in closing. They are moving faster than our best ships." Han hit the comm button. "Admiral, this is Incheon's Pride. We have contact with hostile forces, multiple unknown vessels approaching our position." Choi's voice crackled over the radio. "What do they look like, Captain?" "Like holes cut out of space, sir. They absorb light instead of reflecting it. I am sending sensor data now." On the flagship, the tactical display showed the approaching enemy. The ships moved in perfect formation, like parts of a single organism. They did not broadcast any signals or attempt to communicate. They just came forward with mechanical purpose. "All ships battle stations," Admiral Choi commanded. "Form defensive formation around the flagship. Charge weapons and raise shields." The human fleet spread out in a protective pattern they had practiced 1,000 times. 12 ships against an unknown number of enemies with technology beyond their understanding. The odds were not good, but they were human. They did not run from fights. The first attack came without warning. Beams of pure darkness shot out from the enemy ships. Where the beams touched the human shields, the energy barriers simply vanished, not overloaded or broken, but consumed as if they had never existed. "Shields are down across the fleet," reported Nam Suho. "Those weapons are eating our defensive fields." "Return fire," Choi ordered. "All batteries, maximum power." The human ships opened up with everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and kinetic projectiles filled space with deadly energy. The barrage was enough to vaporize any normal fleet. It did nothing to the dark ships. The weapons fire simply vanished when it touched their hulls, absorbed like water into sand. The enemy kept coming. Captain Han watched her own shots disappear into the geometric shapes. This is impossible. Nothing should be able to absorb that much energy. The dark ships reached weapons range and opened fire again. This time their beams struck the human vessels directly. The destroyer Soul's Fury screamed as its hull began to dissolve. The metal and ceramic armor did not melt or explode. It just faded away, consumed by the hungry darkness. "Soul's Fury is gone," reported the communications officer. "No survivors." Another beam struck the cruiser Daegu's hammer. The ship tried to retreat, but the dark energy followed it, eating through the hull like acid. The crew had time for one final transmission. "Tell Earth," Captain Lee Min-seok's voice came through the static. "Tell them we tried to." The signal cut out as the ship vanished completely. Admiral Choi watched two of his vessels disappear and knew they could not win this fight. "All ships retreat. Maximum speed to the hyperspace jump point." The human fleet turned and ran. It was not a word any of them liked, but sometimes survival required difficult choices. Behind them, the dark ships did not pursue. They had other work to do. As the Busan's Thunder entered hyperspace, Admiral Choi sent a priority message to Earth. His report was simple and terrible. The enemy was real, it was powerful beyond anything they had imagined, and it was coming. On Earth, President Kang Hye-jin read the report in her private office. 14 billion people lived on humanity's homeworld. Hundreds of millions more lived in the colonies scattered across human space. All of them depended on the Galactic Accord to protect them, but the Accord was failing. The other species still refused to believe the threat was real. They hid behind their treaties and their politics while worlds died around them. Kang walked to her window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, ancient evil was consuming everything in its path. The careful balance of galactic civilization was crumbling, and humanity stood alone. She reached for her secure communicator and placed a call to General Park Jun-suk, head of Earth's military forces. "General," she said when he answered, "I need you to dust off some old files. The ones marked never use unless. I think we are approaching unless." In the depths of space, the dark ships continued their work. They had consumed Nexus Prime, completely converting matter into energy to fuel their ancient hunger. Now they turned toward the next system, where a Bruthan colony world waited in ignorance. The Devourers had returned to the galaxy. They had patience, technology, and an endless appetite for consumption. They had faced a dozen civilizations before and consumed them all. But they had never faced humanity when diplomacy died and the gloves came off. Captain Han Ji-woo sat in her quarters aboard the Incheon's Pride, writing her report about the battle. She described the enemy ships, their impossible weapons, and the ease with which they had destroyed human vessels. But she also wrote about something else, something she had noticed in the final moments of the fight. The dark ships were powerful, but they moved in predictable patterns. They absorbed energy weapons, but had not been tested against solid projectiles. They seemed focused on consuming technology and energy, but maybe that focus could be used against them. Humanity had lost the first battle. But humans were very good at learning from their mistakes, and they were even better at finding ways to kill things that tried to kill them first. The war for galactic survival had begun, and humanity was about to show the universe what they were really capable of when the rules no longer mattered. The war room on Earth buzzed with activity. Holographic displays showed the galaxy with red zones marking where worlds had gone silent. In just 2 months, 17 systems had fallen to the Devourers. The pattern was becoming clear and terrifying. Colonel Yang Minho studied the tactical reports with growing unease. Each attack followed the same blueprint. Planetary defenses would hold for exactly 3 hours. Reinforcements would arrive just as the shields failed. The defending fleets would be positioned perfectly for the enemy to destroy them. It is like, they know exactly where our ships will be, he told Major Kim Soo-jin, his intelligence officer. Sir, that is what worries me most. Look at these communication logs. Kim spread out data sheets showing message traffic between the various species. Hidden in the normal diplomatic chatter were subtle patterns. Troop movements reported just before attacks. Shield frequencies mentioned in trade discussions. Supply routes shared in cultural exchanges. Someone is feeding information to the enemy. Yang realized. The evidence pointed to the Vorthak, but proving it would be difficult. The mysterious species kept to themselves and revealed little about their activities. Their ships moved freely through galactic space, claiming diplomatic immunity under ancient treaties. Yang assembled a team for a dangerous mission. Staff Sergeant Yoon Da-yoon led the Special Forces Unit, 12 of humanity's best soldiers trained for impossible operations. Their target was a Vorthak research station in the neutral zone between species territories. The station orbited a dead world, its dark metal surfaces reflecting no light. It looked abandoned, but human sensors detected active power systems and life forms inside. Whatever the Vorthak were doing here, they wanted to keep it secret. Remember, Yang briefed his team as their stealth ship approached the station. We are not officially here. If this goes wrong, Earth will deny we exist. Sergeant, Yoon checked her weapon one final time. Understood, sir. What exactly are we looking for? Evidence. Proof that the Vorthak are working with the Devourers. Communications, battle plans, anything that shows betrayal. The boarding operation went smoothly. Vorthak security was designed to keep out normal threats, not human special forces equipped with technology that violated several galactic treaties. Yang's team cut through the station's outer hull and moved through empty corridors toward the central computer core. What they found there changed everything. The main computer held terabytes of data about galactic defenses, fleet positions, weapon capabilities, shield frequencies, and tactical doctrines. Every species had secrets, and the Vorthak had collected them all. But this was not ordinary espionage. Colonel, Sergeant Yoon called from a secondary console. You need to see this. The screen showed communication logs between Vorthak officials and something else. The messages were encrypted, but human code breakers had been working on Vorthak ciphers for decades. Yang could read enough to understand the horrible truth. The Vorthak were not just spying on the other species. They were servants of the Devourers, preparing the galaxy for consumption. For centuries, they had weakened defenses, stolen secrets, and positioned themselves to help when the ancient enemy returned. Download everything, Yang ordered. Every file, every message, every scrap of data. As his team worked, Yang read more of the intercepted communications. The scope of the betrayal was staggering. The Vorthak had influenced galactic politics for generations, ensuring that the various species would never unite effectively. They had promoted peaceful policies that left worlds defenseless. They had encouraged treaties that prevented rapid military responses. The Galactic Accord itself was part of the trap. All those carefully crafted laws that prevented aggressive action were designed to help the Devourers when they finally arrived. Sir, one of his soldiers called urgently, we have company. Vorthak security forces were moving toward their position. Yang's team had triggered some hidden alarm, and their time was running out. The humans fought a running battle through the station's corridors using superior training and equipment to overcome larger numbers. They reached their ship just as Vorthak reinforcements arrived. The stealth vessel's engines fired at maximum power, carrying the stolen data away from the station and toward human space. Back on Earth, President Kang Hae-jin read the intelligence reports with cold fury. The evidence was overwhelming. The Vorthak had betrayed not just humanity, but every living being in the galaxy. They had sold out entire civilizations to serve creatures that consumed worlds. She called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. This time, the meeting was held by holographic link rather than in person. Too many worlds had been lost to risk gathering in one place. Honored representatives, Kang began. I have evidence of treason that threatens us all. The holographic displays showed the stolen Vorthak data, communication logs, battle plans, and coordination schedules with the Devourers. The proof was clear and undeniable. Count Vex of the Velati studied the evidence with his usual calm expression. These documents could be fabricated. Humans are known for their technological skills. Why would we create false evidence? Kang asked. What would we gain? Military advantage, suggested Trademaster Gull from his hiding place in a secure bunker. The Corvani had lost 3 more worlds since Nexus Prime fell. Perhaps humans want to take control of galactic defense. Dr. Zen of the Nexari leaned forward with scientific interest. The encryption patterns appear authentic. The linguistic structures match known Vorthak communications. If these documents are false, they represent remarkably sophisticated forgery. General, Krex pounded his armored fist on the table. Proof or no proof, the Vorthak have always been secretive. Their actions during this crisis have been suspicious. The Zephyri representatives spoke in unison, their shared mind reaching a quick conclusion. We have observed unusual patterns in Vorthak behavior. Their fleet movements do not match their stated positions. Their trade routes have changed without explanation. Minister Thys of the Vorthak remained silent throughout the presentation. When called upon to respond, his whispered voice carried no emotion. These are lies created by a desperate species. Humans seek to divide us when unity is most needed. Then explain this, Kang said, activating a new hologram. It showed intercepted communications between Vorthak ships and geometric vessels that match descriptions of Devourer craft. Your people have been coordinating with the enemy. Communication is not collaboration, Thys replied. Perhaps we seek to understand our attackers. Knowledge is the path to victory. But the other species were beginning to see the pattern. The Vorthak had been present at every major defeat. Their intelligence reports had always been slightly wrong, leading Allied forces into traps. Their diplomatic efforts had consistently weakened joint defense plans. Count Vex spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. If these accusations are true, the Vorthak have committed the greatest betrayal in galactic history. The accusations are false, Thys insisted. Humans create lies to gain power over us all. Lieutenant Commander Bei Su-jin had been monitoring Vorthak communications from her post aboard the intelligence ship Soul's Eye. As the council meeting progressed, she detected a burst transmission from the Vorthak homeworld to an unknown location in deep space. The message was heavily encrypted, but human computers had learned much about Vorthak codes from the stolen data. Within minutes, they had broken enough of the cipher to understand its meaning. The transmission was a warning to the Devourers. It contained the current positions of all remaining military forces, the status of planetary defenses, and a timeline for the next phase of attacks. Bei immediately sent her findings to Earth. President Kang received the intercept while the council meeting was still in progress. Minister Thys, she said coldly, we have just intercepted a transmission from your homeworld to the enemy. You are still feeding information to the Devourers even as we speak. The Vorthak representative went silent. Around the council chamber, the other species finally understood the full scope of the betrayal. They were not fighting just the Devourers. They were fighting an enemy that had infiltrated their governments, stolen their secrets, and prepared their destruction for centuries. The Vorthak are no longer welcome in this alliance, Count Vex declared. Their crimes against galactic civilization cannot be forgiven. Agreed, rumbled General Krex. Any Vorthak vessel found in Allied space will be destroyed on sight. But the damage was already done. While the Council argued and debated, the Zephyri hive worlds went silent. Billions of connected minds, the most advanced collective intelligence in the galaxy, vanished in a single moment. The psychic scream of their death echoed across space, felt by every species with mental sensitivity. The Devourers were accelerating their attacks. They no longer needed to be subtle or patient. With the Vorthak's help, They had identified every major target and planned the most efficient way to consume them all. President Kang ended the council session with a simple statement. The Galactic Accord has failed. The treaties that were meant to protect us have become chains that hold us down, while our enemies sharpen their knives. Earth will no longer be bound by agreements that serve only our destroyers. As the holographic links closed, Kang turned to her military advisors. The time for diplomacy was over. The emergency broadcast reached every human world at the same time. President Kang Hyejin's image appeared on screens from Earth to the furthest colonies, her voice carrying a message that would reshape the galaxy. Citizens of humanity, she began. For 60 years we have sought our place among the stars through diplomacy and cooperation. We extended hands of friendship and received treaties in return. We offered partnership and were given chains. On Luna Station, factory workers stopped their machines to listen. In the asteroid mines of the belt, miners put down their tools. On colony worlds scattered across human space, families gathered around their communicators. Today those chains are broken. The Galactic Accord that promised peace has delivered only betrayal. Species we trusted as allies have sold us to creatures that consume worlds. Treaties we honored have become weapons used against us. Research Director Dr. Lim Tae-young watched the speech from his laboratory deep beneath Earth's surface. Around him, projects that had been forbidden for decades were suddenly given new priority. Project Prometheus was no longer a theory. It was humanity's salvation. Effective immediately, the president continued. Earth declares independence from the Galactic Accord. We will no longer be bound by laws written by traitors or agreements that serve our enemies. We will defend ourselves by any means necessary. The transformation began within hours. Across human space, civilian factories retooled their production lines. Ships designed for exploration were refitted as weapons platforms. Research stations that studied peaceful applications of science turned to instruments of war. Dr. Lim stood before a massive vault door marked with warnings in 12 languages. The seals had not been broken since the end of Earth's last global war over a century ago. Inside were weapons that humanity had promised never to use. The promises were void. The first revelation was antimatter warheads. Not the small charges, used for mining or the controlled reactions that powered starships. These were weapons of mass destruction that could vaporize entire moons. Each warhead contained enough compressed energy to match the output of a star for several seconds. How many do we have? Asked General Park Jun-seok as he toured the facility. 2,000 completed units. Dr. Lim replied. We can manufacture more, but each one requires materials that are difficult to obtain legally. Legal is no longer our concern. What else? The second vault contained gravitational disruptors. These devices could collapse space-time itself, creating artificial black holes that would consume anything within their event horizon. The weapons were based on technology humanity had discovered but never deployed, judging it too dangerous for civilized warfare. The effective radius? Park asked. Variable. From a single ship to an entire star system, depending on the power setting. The larger settings require enormous amounts of energy, but the effect is permanent. The third vault held the crown jewel of human military science, artificial intelligence-guided weapons. These were not simple computer programs but true thinking machines dedicated to warfare. They could learn, adapt, and innovate in real time, becoming more effective with each battle. The AI systems were banned by 17 different treaties, Dr. Lim explained. They are considered too dangerous because they can evolve beyond their programming. Perfect, General Park said. Deploy them all. Fleet Admiral Oh Seung-ho commanded the largest military mobilization in human history. Operation Wildfire would transform humanity from a peaceful member of galactic civilization into a weapon of war. Every ship, every soldier, and every resource would be focused on a single goal: destroying the Devourers and their Vorthak servants. The shipyards above Earth worked around the clock. Vessels that had carried tourists and cargo were fitted with armor and weapons. Colony ships became troop transports. Even small civilian craft were armed with experimental technologies that violated galactic weapons treaties. Admiral, reported Captain Song Mi-young from the construction yards. We have completed modifications on the first wave of vessels, 300 ships ready for combat operations. What about the new weapon systems? Installed and tested. The quantum torpedoes work better than expected. The plasma lances can cut through any known armor. The void generators are particularly effective against energy-based shielding. The void generators were humanity's answer to the Devourer's light-eating technology. If the enemy absorbed energy weapons, humans would hit them with weapons that removed energy from space itself. The void generators created areas of absolute cold and darkness that even the Devourers could not consume. Commander Shin Ye-jin led the first human fleet to openly break galactic law. Her target was a Vorthak supply depot in what had once been neutral space. The depot was defended by both Vorthak warships and automated defenses that should have been impossible to overcome. All ships, advance to attack position, she ordered. Remember, we are not here to capture or negotiate. We are here to destroy. The Vorthak ships moved to intercept, confident in their superior technology and defensive positions. They had fought humans before, and always won through careful planning and advanced weapons. They expected another easy victory. They were wrong. The human ships opened fire with weapons the Vorthak had never seen. Antimatter warheads detonated in perfect synchronization, overwhelming the enemy shields through sheer destructive force. Gravitational disruptors twisted space around Vorthak vessels, crushing them like insects in an invisible fist. Impossible, transmitted the Vorthak commander before his ship vanished into a collapsing gravity well. These weapons are forbidden by galactic law. We are no longer bound by galactic law, Commander Shin replied coldly. You betrayed those laws first. The battle was over in minutes. Every Vorthak ship was destroyed, their supply depot reduced to scattered atoms. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer playing by the old rules. Similar attacks struck Vorthak positions across the galaxy. Secret bases, communication relays, and supply lines all fell to human forces equipped with weapons that made their previous technology look primitive. Each victory demonstrated new levels of destructive capability. Major Park Jun-seok commanded ground forces equipped with personal weapons that violated every treaty on civilized warfare. His soldiers carried plasma rifles that could melt through tank armor, gravity manipulators that could crush enemies from the inside out, and AI-assisted targeting systems that made every shot perfectly accurate. The Vorthak ground forces are requesting surrender, reported Lieutenant Colonel Woo Dong-hyun after their assault on a Vorthak intelligence facility. Denied, Park replied. We are not taking prisoners. These creatures betrayed the entire galaxy to serve extinction itself. They deserve extinction in return. The systematic destruction of Vorthak civilization sent shockwaves through the remaining galactic species. The humans who had once begged for permission to defend their own worlds were now demonstrating military capabilities that dwarfed anything in known space. Count Vex of the Velothi sent urgent messages to human leaders, pleading for restraint. Your actions threaten the stability of galactic civilization, he transmitted. Such weapons in the hands of any one species could upset the balance of power for millennia. President Kang's response was broadcast across all channels. Count Vex, your concern for stability is noted. Where was this concern when the Devourers consumed 17 worlds? Where was the balance of power when your species refused to act against extinction itself? We were following established protocols, Vex replied. Diplomatic solutions take time. We no longer have time. While you follow protocols, billions die. While you debate procedures, civilizations fall. Humanity has chosen survival over stability. Doctor? Zen of the Nexari approached the situation from a scientific perspective. The human weapons appeared to be based on theoretical research that most species considered too dangerous to pursue. How long have you been developing these technologies? Since the day we signed our first galactic treaty, Kang answered honestly. We hoped we would never need them. We prepared for the possibility that hope would not be enough. The remaining Pruthan forces, led by General Krex, requested permission to join human military operations. Their warrior culture respected strength above all else, and humanity had just demonstrated strength beyond anything they had imagined. We offer our fleets to serve under human command, Krex transmitted. Our honor demands we fight beside the strongest warriors in the galaxy. Your offer is accepted, Admiral O replied. But understand that human warfare is total warfare. We do not fight for territory or resources. We fight for survival, and we will use any means necessary to win. The AI-guided weapons proved to be particularly effective. These thinking machines learned from every engagement, developing new tactics and strategies faster than any biological mind could comprehend. They began modifying themselves, creating weapon variants that the Devourers had never encountered within weeks. The AI systems were producing technologies that even their human creators did not fully understand. Self-replicating missiles that could build copies of themselves from space debris, quantum viruses that could infect energy-based life forms, temporal distortion fields that aged enemy ships to dust in seconds. The AI systems are evolving beyond our control, Dr. Lim reported. Harmony Point Station, once a symbol of galactic peace, now served as the command center for the greatest war in galactic history. General Kim Woo-bin stood in the main war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the final battle lines. The Devourer main fleet was only days away from the core worlds where billions of lives hung in the balance. Status report, Kim demanded from his staff officers. The enemy fleet consists of over 3,000 vessels, ranging from frigate size, scouts to dreadnoughts larger than our biggest space stations, reported Colonel Han Sang-woo. They are accompanied by what our sensors classify as living ships, creatures that exist partially in normal space and partially in dimensions we cannot measure. Our forces? 800 human ships, 400 allied vessels from the Bruthen, and remaining Corvani fleets. The Velati and Nexari are providing support but staying in defensive positions around their homeworlds. The numbers were not encouraging. Even with their advanced weapons, humanity was outnumbered nearly 3-1 by an enemy that had consumed entire civilizations. But humans had never been discouraged by bad odds. Captain Ryu Hye-won commanded the experimental dreadnought Souls. Vengeance, the most powerful warship humanity had ever constructed. Deep in its armored core sat the quantum cascade projector, a weapon that Dr. Lim Tae-young had called humanity's greatest achievement and greatest mistake. Captain, asked her weapons officer, Commander No Tae-hyun, are you certain about using the QCP? The theoretical studies suggest it could tear apart local spacetime. The studies also suggest it is the only weapon that can permanently destroy the Devourers, Ryu replied. Sometimes you have to risk everything to save everything. The quantum cascade projector worked by unraveling the fundamental forces that held matter together. When fired, it created a cascade reaction that spread through quantum foam, destroying not just the target but the underlying structure of reality itself. The weapon could eliminate entire star systems, but it could also create holes in space that never healed. Engineering reports the QCP is fully charged and ready to fire, No announced. One shot, maximum power. Understood. Hold fire until we have a clear shot at their command ship. Across the human fleet, similar conversations were taking place. Every ship carried weapons that violated the basic principles of civilized warfare. Every captain understood that they might not survive the battle. Every crew member knew that failure meant the extinction of everything they loved. The first contact came at the edge of the Centaurus sector. Human scout ships encountered Devourer advance forces moving through space like a plague of geometric darkness. The initial exchanges revealed just how much both sides had learned since the war began. The Devourers had adapted to human tactics. Their ships now carried defensive screens that could absorb certain types of energy weapons. They had developed new attack patterns that countered human AI-guided systems. They had learned to fear humanity's gravitational weapons and deployed countermeasures against them. But humans adapted faster. Sergeant First Class Hong Jae-min led the first boarding action against a Devourer vessel. His assault team was equipped with experimental armor that existed partially outside normal spacetime, allowing them to interact with the enemy's dimensional technology. Breaching the hull now, Hong reported as his team cut through what appeared to be solid darkness. The interior is unlike anything we have seen before. Inside the Devourer ship, The assault team found corridors that twisted through impossible geometries. The walls themselves were alive, pulsing with dark energy that tried to drain the life from anything that touched them. This was not a machine, built by intelligent beings. This was a creature that had grown into the shape of a warship. "Sir, the ship appears to be a living organism," reported Corporal Kim Da-sol. "The walls are organic, and there are structures that might be organs or control systems. Can you find what passes for a bridge or command center?" Following what looks like a nervous system, the energy flows suggest a central processing area deeper in the ship. Hong's team fought their way through the living corridors, battling automated defenses that were part of the ship's immune system. Their weapons were designed to disrupt the quantum bonds that held the creature together, but the ship fought back by trying to absorb their life energy directly. They found the command center deep in the ship's core. It was a chamber filled with floating geometric shapes that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. These were the Devourers themselves, ancient beings of pure energy that had learned to consume matter and convert it to fuel their existence. "They are not machines or even biological creatures," Hong transmitted. "They are living energy that feeds on the quantum foam of space itself. No wonder our conventional weapons have limited effect." The discovery changed everything. The Devourers were not invaders using advanced technology. They were fundamental forces of entropy made manifest, creatures that existed to convert order into chaos and matter into energy. Fighting them was like fighting the heat death of the universe itself. But humans had always specialized in fighting impossible odds. Dr. Lim worked frantically in his laboratory, developing new weapons based on Hong's discoveries. If the Devourers fed on quantum energy, humanity would create weapons that disrupted their food source. Quantum starvation fields that cut them off from the underlying structure of reality. Entropy inverters that forced them to give back the energy they had consumed. "The new weapons are ready for deployment," he reported to General Kim. "But they are completely untested. We have no idea what the side effects might be." "Will they kill Devourers?" "In theory, yes. They should force the creatures to consume their own energy reserves until they starve to death, then deploy them immediately. We cannot win through conventional means." The main battle began when the Devourer fleet reached the galactic core, space. Itself seemed to darken as thousands of geometric ships emerged from hyperspace, their hulls absorbing all light that touched them. Behind them came things that hurt to look at, creatures of living darkness that existed in too many dimensions for human minds to comprehend. Admiral O commanded the human fleet from his flagship, the battleship Busan's Thunder. Around him, holographic displays showed the enemy approaching in perfect formation, like a wave of entropy washing over the galaxy. "All ships, engage at maximum range," he ordered. "Do not let them get close enough to use their absorption weapons." The first salvo from the human fleet lit up space with exotic energies. Antimatter warheads detonated in perfect synchronization, creating temporary suns that outshone nearby stars. Gravitational disruptors twisted space into impossible knots, crushing enemy ships in artificial gravity wells. The Devourers responded with weapons that defied understanding, beams of pure entropy that aged human ships to dust in seconds. Dimensional rifts that swallowed entire squadrons and spat them out as scattered atoms. Waves of anti-energy that canceled out human shields and armor, as if they had never existed. "We are losing ships faster than we can count them," reported Captain Song from the tactical station. "The enemy weapons are more effective than our models." "Predicted." "Then it is time to stop holding back," Admiral O replied. "Signal all ships. Authorize use of Category 5 weapons. Full deployment, no restrictions." Category 5 weapons were humanity's deepest secrets, technology so dangerous that using them was considered an act of madness. Temporal disruptors that could erase enemy ships from history. Reality bombs that deleted sections of space-time and replaced them with nothing. Consciousness viruses that could infect and destroy energy-based life forms. The battle became a nightmare of physics violations and impossible geometries. Human weapons that manipulated time clashed with Devourer, technologies that existed outside causality. Ships aged to dust while their crews experienced centuries in seconds. Sections of space simply stopped existing, leaving holes in reality that bled strange energies. Captain Ryu watched the carnage from the bridge of Soul's vengeance and knew the moment had come. The conventional battle was going badly for both sides, with casualties mounting beyond comprehension. Only the ultimate weapon could tip the balance. "Target the Devourer command ship," she ordered. "Quantum cascade projector, maximum power." "Captain," Commander No warned, "if we miss, the cascade could spread to our own ships. If we hit too hard, we could unravel local space-time permanently. If we do nothing, everything dies anyway." Fire. The quantum cascade projector unleashed a beam of impossible energy that struck the largest Devourer vessel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality began to unravel. The enemy ship did not explode or burn. It simply ceased to exist, along with a sphere of space-time around it that collapsed into nothingness. The cascade effect spread to nearby enemy vessels, erasing them from existence with mathematical precision. But the weapon's power was too great to control completely. The cascade began spreading beyond its intended targets, threatening to consume everything in the battle zone, friend and enemy alike. "Emergency jump all ships," Admiral O ordered. "Get clear of the cascade field, maximum speed." Human ships fled the expanding zone of nothingness while the Devourers found themselves trapped by their own formations. Hundreds of ancient creatures vanished into the quantum cascade, deleted from existing. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Centaurus Core. The scars in space-time still glowed with unstable energy, reminders of the weapons humanity had used to save the galaxy. Ambassador Kim Dae-ho stood where Harmony Point Station had once orbited, now replaced by a memorial to the billions who had died in the war. The galaxy was quiet. The Devourers had retreated to the dark spaces between stars, their ancient hunger finally checked by an enemy that could match their power to consume. The Vorthak were extinct, their betrayal earning them complete annihilation at human hands. The surviving species were rebuilding, but the universe they inhabited was forever changed. "Final casualty reports, sir," reported Captain Lee Hyun-soo, now Kim's military aide. 17 worlds completely consumed by the Devourers. 43 billion sentient beings lost across all species. 32 regions of space rendered uninhabitable by quantum cascade effects. The numbers were staggering, but they could have been worse. Without humanity's intervention, every world in the galaxy would have fallen to the ancient enemy. The cost of victory was terrible, but the price of defeat would have been absolute. President Kang Hae-jin had aged visibly during the war. The decisions she had made weighed heavily on her conscience. In her private office, she reviewed reports from across human space, documenting the transformation her species had undergone. Earth's industrial capacity had increased by 3,000% during the war. Colony worlds that had been peaceful farming communities now housed weapons factories that could destroy stars. Research stations had developed technologies that violated the fundamental laws of physics. Humanity had become the most powerful military force in galactic history, and that power terrified everyone, including humans themselves. "Madam President," announced her secretary, "the new Galactic Council representatives are here for the peace conference." The surviving species had learned to treat humanity with a mixture of respect and fear. Count Vex of the Velati entered the conference room with careful, measured steps. His elegant robes could not hide the way his hands shook slightly when he looked at the human delegation. Dr. Zen of the Nexari followed, her large black eyes studying the humans with scientific fascination and barely concealed worry. The Nexari had run calculations on human military capabilities, and the results had kept their entire species awake at night. General Krex represented what remained of the Bruthan military. His warrior culture had always respected strength, but even he seemed subdued in the presence of beings who could erase matter from existence with their weapons. The few surviving Corvani were represented by Trade Master Hull, nephew of the Gull who had died when Nexus Prime was consumed. His forearms gestured nervously as he took his seat at the conference table. "We gathered today not as conquerors and conquered," President Kang began, "but as survivors of a war that nearly destroyed our galaxy. The question before us is simple. What kind of future do we want to build? Count Vex spoke first, his voice carefully controlled. Humanity has demonstrated military capabilities beyond anything we imagined possible. Your weapons can destroy star systems, unravel space-time itself, and erase enemies from existence. The galaxy waits to learn what you intend to do with such power. You expect us to demand tribute, Kim Dae-ho observed. You think we will claim dominion over all surviving worlds, as conquerors throughout history have done. Would we be wrong to expect this? Dr. Zen asked. Your species possesses the power to enforce any demand you choose to make. Why would you not use that power? President Kang stood and walked to the large window that showed the damaged space around them. Quantum. Cascade scars still flickered with unnatural light. Wounds in reality that would take centuries to heal, because we have seen the cost of ultimate power, she said quietly. We have weapons that can unmake reality itself. We have the ability to force our will upon the galaxy through pure destructive capability. And we have learned that such power is too dangerous for anyone to wield safely. She turned back to face the alien representatives. Effective immediately, humanity will begin the systematic dismantling of our most dangerous weapons. The quantum cascade projectors will be destroyed. The reality bombs will be disassembled. The temporal disruptors will be sealed away forever. The silence in the room was absolute. The alien delegates stared at her in shock, unable to comprehend what they were hearing. You would give up ultimate power voluntarily, Count Vex whispered. Why? Because ultimate power corrupts ultimately, Kang replied. We have seen what we become when we unleash our full capabilities. We have felt the temptation to solve every problem through superior firepower. That path leads to becoming the very monsters we fought to destroy. Admiral Oh Sung-ho had overseen the greatest military buildup in human history. Now he commanded the greatest military reduction. Across human space, weapons capable of destroying civilizations were being carefully dismantled by their own creators. Sir, reported Captain Song Mi-young, the weapon disposal teams have completed Phase 1. All quantum cascade projectors have been destroyed, their components scattered across multiple star systems to prevent reconstruction. Phase 2 status? The gravitational disruptors are being dismantled now. We are keeping detailed records of the process to ensure the knowledge is preserved but contained. Oh nodded. The knowledge could not be completely destroyed. Future generations might face threats that required such weapons, but the actual devices were too dangerous to leave intact, even in human hands. Dr. Lim Tae-young stood in his laboratory, watching as his greatest creations were reduced to scrap metal and exotic particles. The weapons that had saved the galaxy were being unmade by the same hands that had built them. Any regrets, Doctor? Asked his assistant, Dr. Park Yoon-ji. Many, Lim replied. But not about this decision. These weapons were necessary to defeat the Devourers, but they represent a level of destructive power that no species should possess permanently. We created them to save lives. Now we destroy them to save souls. The process was not without controversy. Many humans argued that dismantling their ultimate weapons left them vulnerable to future threats. General Park Jun-seok led a faction that wanted to keep at least some of the most powerful devices in secure storage. We are making ourselves weak, he argued during a heated cabinet meeting. What happens when the next existential threat appears? What if the Devourers return with greater numbers? Then we will face that threat as we faced this one, President Kang replied. With courage, innovation, and the knowledge that some prices are too high to pay, even for victory. The debate raged for months, but the decision held. Humanity would keep conventional weapons, advance defensive systems, and the industrial capacity to build more if needed. But the reality-altering weapons that had won the war would be consigned to history. Captain Ryu Haiwan oversaw the destruction of Seoul's Vengeance, the dreadnought that had carried the first quantum cascade projector into battle. The ship that had turned the tide of the war was reduced to its component atoms, its dangerous cargo safely disposed of. It seems wrong somehow, commented her former weapons officer, Commander No. This ship saved the galaxy, and now its destruction will help preserve the galaxy, Ryu replied. Some victories can only be achieved once. Some weapons can only be used when everything else has failed. We succeeded because we were willing to risk everything. Now we prove our success by choosing to risk less. The alien species watched this process with amazement and growing respect. Humanity was voluntarily reducing their military capabilities from godlike to merely superior. They were choosing restraint over dominance, wisdom over power. But the galaxy would never forget what humans were capable of when pushed to the brink. The new galactic accord was very different from the old one. The careful balance of power between species was replaced by a simple understanding. Humanity could destroy anyone who threatened galactic peace, but they chose not to rule through fear. The new treaties recognize human military superiority while establishing mutual cooperation agreements, explained Ambassador Kim to the Human Defense Council. We are not rulers, but we are acknowledged as the ultimate arbiters of galactic security, and if another species develops weapons like ours, asked Admiral O, then we will deal with that situation as it arises. But for now, the galaxy knows that we possess both the power to enforce peace and the wisdom to choose restraint. Colonel Yang Min-ho, now promoted to general, commanded the new Human Peace Corps. This organization was tasked with maintaining security without the reality-breaking weapons of the war years. Our mission is deterrence through competence, not destruction through overwhelming force, he explained to his officers. We must be strong enough that others choose cooperation over conflict, but not so strong that we become the threat we once fought against. The human colonies began the long process of converting from war production back to peaceful pursuits. Weapons. Factories became manufacturing centers for civilian goods. Military research stations turned their attention to medical advances and environmental restoration. The galaxy began to heal from the scars of war. But in the deepest vaults beneath Earth's surface, small samples of exotic matter remained sealed away. Not weapons, but the basic materials needed to build weapons if the impossible.